Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science to Technology. In today's show, Camera Tuesday, we're going to talk about global shutter impact, because right now I'm reasonably sure in last 2-3 weeks you must have heard of this topic, global shutter again and again and again. So let's dive deep into it. Well, why exactly do we need this global shutter? Well, reality is we are using a rolling shutter and it does not have memory in pixel. So a history. We had two technology back in the days. We had CCD and we had CMOS. CMOS was cheaper, so it became mass produced. Consequently, more research was done on it. Over time, it became the only technology available. Now, CCDs are still manufactured if you are dealing with something like NASA, spy satellites. So because CMOS does have some inherent benefits, so those are used for idiotically expensive projects. But for common people, cameras, cinema camera, back in the days, movie cinema cameras were CCD based. Nowadays, even those are CMOS based. So CMOS became a very de facto technology. However, CMOS was inherently weak in one regard, is that it read line by line. Basically, row by row, it kept reading the sensor. So there was no impulse. Basically, it was like, it was not like it was a scanner. Now, the moment you make a sensor big, or even on a small sensor, if you move things fast enough, like a propeller, wheel, or a racket, anything slim and long, and you are moving around, it will literally have this hulululu happening to it. So why the heck it was there? Well, there was a solution to it. People figured out, okay, that's a problem. People figured out how to solve it. The solution was, next to every pixel, put a capacitor there. So you shift the pixel's energy level to the capacitor, read the capacitor one by one, but you shift every pixel to the capacitor next to it in one snap. So instead of this line, it will be a snapshot, a true global shutter. But it does create a consequence, simply because photosites, basically the place where your silicon is doing the conversion of photons to electrical energy, it's become smaller, because again you have to put a capacitor next to it. So inherently it shrinks the size of photosite. So there was a compromise in dynamic range, in low noise. So basically it gave up something to gain something. It gained speed, it gave up basically low noise performance and the sensitivity, dynamic range, things of that nature. And there was another consequence, because it's a complex thing. Silicon manufacturing is a complex thing, and given the fact that sensor itself is a complex thing, now you are adding a basically capacitor next to everything. Inherently the yield rate was lower, meaning you give one silicon wafer and it's like, okay, 5 of them are broken, like it did not came out right. So yield rate was high, so that kept the cost a bit higher. So in the early 2010s, there was like some move towards going global shutter in CMOS industry, but because of the cost, it was not that feasible back then. So these two things kind of limited it, is that technology was really not that good fundamentally. On a fundamental way, you can use the same technology and outcome would be the same. Hey, if your X amount of photosite is good, X plus 20% would be better, X minus 20% would be worse. Like, you cannot change it. So that's why there was not too much attention put into global shutter. But at this point in time, you must have noticed that we have mobile cameras, and they're good. I mean, like horrifyingly good. Because here's the deal: we made large sensor photo cameras like DSLRs, full frame mirrorless camera, for sole one reason, is simply because bigger pixel size gives you better image. And somehow, literally, our mobile phones can compete next to it. And yes, the true image coming out of both of them would be completely different. But what you are getting, the processed outcome of it, it's damn miracle. It's like, how the heck a tiny sensor in a mobile phone can do almost low light to a point where it's almost close to night vision. How the heck it became that good? Because our signal processing became much better. The signal processing that we have in current cameras, it's ancient. Signal processing we have in our basically Snapdragon processors, those are god tier. So even if you give it a garbage output from your sensor, it's like, bro, I got this. It's magically cleans it up, magically gives you a result that you're like, holy damn, this is good for something that I put in my pocket. So modern technology does remove the consequence of basically global shutter. Basically nowadays, and be mindful, global shutter is not bad. It's just like little bit, like 10 to 20% worse. Our modern signal processing unit is like, bro, I got this. Because here's the deal, you cannot fix this effect. Basically, if you have this effect, you cannot fix it in post-production. No matter what you do, you cannot fix it. You may have to go to CG level, where it's like, okay, I'm gonna mask everything out, simulate what is supposed to be, then I'm gonna rotate. Yeah, it's not gonna happen. So fundamentally, there is a point where technology is now saying that, hey, go to global shutter, enjoy the true effect of the world without having this squiggly lines. And again, high-speed shooting also becomes far more viable. So there is a real limitation of digital photography, that is this: it can be solved, and the noise performance, all that, those are already solved because of better signal processing algorithms. So do we have any real world example to look at? Well, yes, Red Komodo has a global shutter. Now be mindful, there were other cinema cameras that had CCD, that had rolling shutter and global shutter. But here's the deal, Blackmagic did try to introduce it and they did not did it properly. So result was really bad, and Blackmagic almost dropped it quietly. Like nobody even knows that what happened to that camera. Abandoned, it's now a video in abandoned camera series. But this one, Red Komodo, it's a recent release. It's here, it's in public, people are using it, and it's damn good. And this is a very big moment because it's a cinema camera. And somehow global shutter is good enough to yield cinema level result. Again, be mindful, it's a small sensor. So it's there, it's able to hold its own. It's not like, oh, this is multiple steps garbage compared to like, a true rolling shutter. It's not there. It's like, whoa, it's almost par by par. That's why I said modern signal processing is genuinely good enough. And then you come to broadcasting, where you have sports events like football, cricket, hockey. In those sort of scenarios, you have people far away on a giant telephoto lens moving things around. That's a very fast wave pan. You do that with rolling shutter, everybody is gonna vomit in their TVs. Basically, everybody who's watching at home. So you have to use rolling shutter. For example, Sony's HDC 5500 broadcast camera. Now be mindful, this is broadcast camera, very expensive, but again, global shutter. It's a thing. It's a normal thing. So, and if you are ever wondering how the heck police cameras can scan number plates, when you try to do it, all you get is smeary mesh. Again, Motion has a rolling shutter. How the heck police cameras do it? Global shutter. So if you ever hear about it has Sony sensor. Sony sensor has multiple series. Sony Pegasus series is an image chip lineup which has global shutter. Meaning you can just, hey, I want to build a, let's say, security camera, buy global shutter. If I want to build, let's say, a dash cam, which requires global shutter, because without global shutter, I have dash cam. Without global shutter, all it does is like smeary mess if I try to read the number plate. So you can use Sony Pegasus, and many machine vision, they are already using it. It's an old thing. That's why I said the technology was always there. It was just never desirable for artistic thing. It was like, for a technical thing, we get it. And if you are in a factory and you're like, dude, the low light performance is not good enough, you will put lamps there. You'll be like, bro, I get it. But because speed is more important than energy efficiency, you're like, I'll put some lamps, I'll get more production out of it. So global shutter, and be mindful, Sony and Canon, both of them have lineups of it in their industrial catalog, not in public catalog, industrial catalog. Canon did try to release a C700, did had a global shutter option add-on, but I've never seen any video or feedback of like people actually showing it. But this is here, you can buy it, see it, and like this is what happens with rolling shutter. Your ribbons, basically strings, looks like a noodle, but that's not how it's supposed to look. It's supposed to look like this, it's vibrating. And flashing lights are a very big thing, because once you have flashing lights, inherently you will get a gradient, because light is not syncing and it's reading from top to bottom or bottom to top, whatever have you. It fundamentally has that uneven flashing. And you must have seen this sort of thing when people are taking flash photos, you see only half of the frame is illuminated. That's side effect of basically rolling shutter. But if you have global shutter, it will look natural. Fundamentally, it's whole different game, especially if you are taking a footage of lightning in the sky. You'll be like shocked how big difference global shutter alone makes it. And VFX artists, they love this. Why? Again, if you're moving cameras around, things are changing their shape. So how the heck you gonna mask something like that? Again, it can be done, it can be masked, it just costs money, unnecessary hassle. So we have real world performance in commercial market, not in industrial market, in commercial market, where performance is more than good enough. Is basically, if you give footage from this camera to anyone, and if they say, oh no, the footage is garbage, you will laugh at them. It's like, no, it's not garbage, you are garbage. It's like, yeah, can you get better than this? Absolutely. Is it good enough for a, let's say, a theater presentation? More than good enough. It's like, we got that. Be mindful, we used to do 2K theater projection on like a dynamic range of 12 stops. This puppy has more than that. So we have real world data where rolling shutter is slowly starting to make a comeback to consumer electronics. So what were the development of this? Wouldn't it be expensive? Well, fortunately, every company that has silicon semiconductor development specifically for sensors, they have a parallel development for global shutter. It never went out of fashion, it only went out of public size. So it's like some company did try to make it, they made it poorly and it created a bad reputation. So they're like, okay, all companies went into CMOS with rolling shutter rather than global shutter, but that product line never died out. Be mindful, all companies have active system, and machine vision, that's the only requirement. For example, how the heck you think modern OLEDs are made? You made the OLED, then you'll illuminate all the LEDs, basically LEDs in it, and then you capture with a camera. Of course, you have a very precisely made lens, so you can be damn sure every pixel is a pixel, but it does require, very refined, high speed global shutter camera. Like Sony is this camera. This has 128 megapixel global shutter. I'm like, did somebody said Sony, like, Sony, yours is small? It's like, this is huge. This is like a medium sensor. It's like, this puppy is huge. It's like, who insulted you, man? It's like, this is freaking huge. It makes full frame look tiny. And this is the sensor that is making a lot of noise right now. This is from Canon global shutter. You can see the racket becomes straight, and the moment you do in rolling shutter, it rolls. So this is from LI5030, 35mm full frame. I think that's why it's so popular. It's 35mm. It's full frame. So Canon is be mindful. I specified all of the companies who have basically sensor lineup for industrial sector. They have rolling shutters. They have global shutter as an option. You can choose it in the catalog. You can just choose it. And again, if you can make something this big, it's like it is huge. It's almost like Hasselblad kind of size. And I have seen some industrial where they are capturing large boards like motherboards, things of that nature. This camera is like I can study every capacitor in one go. So development is always going on in the background. Now technology is mature enough for mass use. It's like it was already there. Now we have to just like, hey, let's shift it to consumer rather than machine vision application. Let's shift it to, because be mindful. Let's say you are talking about self-driving cars. It needs a camera that has global shutter. If you put a rolling shutter there, it has a serious issue where it's like, think of this, cars are moving. Relative speed could be very high. Let's say you are moving at 100 kmph. That person is moving 100 k. From machine vision's point of view, the car would be so skewed. It's like, dude, am I on weed? AI will say that to you. So for that reason, global shutter is also used for that. You have to have global shutter there. Otherwise, it creates an unnecessary layer of abstraction where your software has to decode that, oh, it's an image, apply correction, then give the data. Or you can just put a brighter sensor there. So this is the only path left for basically all these puppies. The reality is majority of the technology has reached saturation. Basically all the cameras, there was a very big jump camera in early 2000 to 2010, but if you go from 2010 to 2015, the gap almost shrunk. From 2015 to now, it's almost negligible. Like cameras are still horrible to use. They are still garbage in terms of user interface, in terms of basically how many cameras you know that have touchscreen and it's anywhere near close enough to your old mobile phone. I'm not talking about like latest and greatest mobile phone, old mobile phone. I'm just talking about like naming conventions and all. Like we don't have naming convention in cameras. Like I can't set, hey, I want this date format, like year, like 4-letter years, 2-letter month, 2-letter date. Why? Because this name convention is easily arrangeable in any file format. Because again, it's a mathematically arranged system. You will never mess it up, even if metadata is stripped, if you are converting or something like that. We can't do that. You can't have easily, like only some high-end cameras have prefix and suffix. It's like, why? It's like fundamentally all the growth in this sort of technology reached a point where it's like, yeah, you're just increasing the megapixel. Like you will be hard pressed to tell the difference between 2015 output versus 2020 output. Now video became the next thing. So video, we went from SD to HD. That was the biggest jump ever. It was like nothing potato camera to good camera. That was a big jump. Then we went from basically HD to 4K. It was there, but it was like already reaching a point where it's like, can you really say, again, horse, if you're talking about anything that has animals and hair, yeah, it makes a difference, but like does not make that much of a difference. And be mindful, majority of the movies were still, till very recently, were done in 2K, which is this full HD with bit of margin on top and bottom. So yeah, that was not a big deal, like going from HD to 4K. 4K to 8K is rarely any good. It's like, yeah, file size goes up, but majority of lens do not have enough resolving power to justify it. It's like, yeah, it's barely better. Again, at this point, even animal air is like, yeah, some amount of more resolution, and be mindful, the file size is exponentially higher. So technology has reached a saturation, and be mindful, mobile are catching up extremely fast. It's like, damn how good mobile phones are nowadays. And not to mention, somehow mobile phones have optical zoom now. I do get it, it has periscope, but damn, I've seen like S22 Ultras, like optical zoom it's creepy how good it is. It's like people are just there, I can see you kilometers away. It's like, what the hell? So you have to understand, there is no wow factor in camera, and it's every camera company is feeling it. Their sales are not going up. The best thing they do, oh, this year we had less less market shrink, because be mindful, after 2009 all of the camera market is shrinking everywhere, because again, all of these things are garbage. Like from a modern user interface point of view, these are like stuck in a printer land of like 1990. So fundamentally, there is no wow factor, and every company wants that wow factor. Otherwise, what's the point? Like, it's fun and games to say we have 8K. It's like, after a while, people using it is like, really? Not really that impressive. So we need something wow, that's like, whoa, no other camera can do this. So global shutter is that. And there are some other limitations that are because of law or patents. For example, 30-minute limit law. Why the heck it was there? It was a basically law in European Union. If camera company was willing to either shrink their profit margin or increase the cost, they could have bypassed it by paying the penalty like GH5 did. But nowadays that law has been removed. That's why modern cameras do not have 30-minute limit. And another patent issue, like why right now Nikon is in the court battle with Red, because Red somehow managed to get patent on internal raw recording on video. Somehow they got it. It's like that should not be patentable. Patent should be the algorithm that you're using. Let's say you have some magical algorithm that is doing something, that should be patentable. That's awesome. But what they patent is equivalent to Nikon patenting. Let's say I have raw file patent. Canon cannot get raw in their camera. It's like, you'll be like, dude, what the hell are you smoking? Somehow, like there was some glitch. Patent law, somebody messed it up, and there is a patent for that. And there is like a lot of fights from Sony to Red. Red almost shut down Kfinity camera. Kfinity also did that. They have better technology. Kfinity camera genuinely have good technology. And if they had like one or two more iteration, they would have bitch slapped Red out of it. But again, Red went to the court. And right now Nikon is in the court with it's like, dude, how the heck you have patent granted in this format? You cannot have patent of something like this. It's like electricity to light, that's my patent. It's like, no, you have to patent exactly what you are doing, not what is done. It's like, again, you can have like Edison had their own light bulb socket and all that. Tesla is like, okay, cool, that's your stuff, cool. I'm going to create a different design that's cheaper, more efficient, more easily mass producible. Voila. So you get that, like that's really weird. So those things are also a limitation on these camera companies. That's why you always say all of them have like easily raw output. Then why the heck they don't do capture? And you can see like you can do Ninja 5. It's not a super complicated device. How the heck Ninja 5 can do raw recording? Does not have to worry about patents. So truly game-changing potential is there in global shutter, when you can truly use a video camera with a large sensor and have a truly good experience. Whereas like whip panning, no problem. Fast-moving objects, no problem. Action, sports, telephoto, no problem. You can do that. And flash sync would become super simple. Now you can flash sync rather than right now. If you try to sync anything above let's say 250 of a second, what you have to do is multiple strobes. Once you have global shutter, one strobe, done, go home, battery saved, flashlight saved, everybody would be happy. So there are some genuine advantage of going to global shutter. And if company truly want to use it, they can do some amazing things with it, assuming they want to. But be mindful, this cameras on this mobile phones, they are capturing, because I recently just realized many of the mobile phones have shadow marks on their sensor, and that allows them to do HDR in one shot. They capture one photo, it is already HDR. I did not even knew that. That's why the mobile camera companies are moving so much in high megapixel. You don't get megapixel, you get 12 megapixel only. But why the heck they have 64 megapixel? Because somehow they're making their sensor work as like one sensor is for low light, one sensor is mid light, one sensor is high light. Or they have 5 layers of this. So it's kind of amazing. Be mindful. That's why I'm saying like things in mobile end, they're getting good. And all this 1980s technology where it's like, we are just increasing the megapixel. It's like, to improve the usability. Like USB charging is still not a guaranteed thing. Like USB charging power delivery standard is still not a thing. And half of them have weird limitations. It's like, it's really bad. So that's why everybody is talking about it. There is no major innovation left. So this was my presentation on basically why the heck we have so much hype about global shutter. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike. Press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.